very frustrated because they have a Buddha who has no money on her, of course, acolytes who carry no money on them, and farmers who have nothing but crops to sell. They don't have any cash, don't have anything valuable. However, if they let the farmer and the Buddhists go, then word will get out that they've gone soft, and people will put up a fight or not take them seriously. So the Buddha goes to these pirates to sue for peace. Right? So she does so. She pleads with them. There's nothing we have here. You can leave. You won't be harmed. We won't be harmed. It's for the greatest good. And it's in vain. So they agree with her, standing right in front of them, that they will kill everyone on board, starting with her. Well, while they're agreeing on this, thinking that she is harmless, right? She's a Buddhist. They're worthless in terms of combat. So she draws the pirate captain's sword and kills several of the pirates before any of them can draw arms, and then fights off the other two and kills them as well. By the way, if you've ever fought with a sword, it takes a lot of practice and skill. It's not something you can just do and kill somebody with, especially if you're fighting against other people who are equally as well armed, which means she had skill at arms. That doesn't make it. She's a hypocrite. Buddhism is false. Or is there a deeper point to be made here? There's a deeper point. She engaged in evil to prevent a greater evil. She knew that if she did nothing, 20 farmers, her and 5 acolytes would all be killed. She killed 5 pirates for the greater good. But she never said, oh, look at me, I'm so good. Instead, after she was done fighting, and there's blood all over the boat, she falls to the ground and cries at the great evil she had engaged in. So, can passive resistance be an answer? Certainly. Can active resistance be an answer? Certainly. I think the point that Marion is trying to make is acknowledge the evil that you feel forced to engage in as evil. Don't call it good. So if I experience myself as innocent of the evil I suffer, I am now a part of the problem. It was very sad in researching for this particular talk today, incidents of evil that were glossed over as good. Britain suffered horribly at the hands of Germany in World War II. The bombing of civilian targets. And the Germans knew they were not targeting factories and places that create munitions, etc., military targets. No, they were targeting civilians. And the British suffered greatly at the hands of the Germans. Well, as the war changed and the Brits were able to get their planes deeper and deeper into Germany, it became a question about what British war doctrine should be. Should we target only military targets, railways, factories, munitions depots, etc., or should we target the German people? Britain, the United States, Russia all agreed to target the German people instead of military targets. The hitting schools and churches and homes were a priority target over hitting munition depots, etc. So now, hindsight being what it is, it's been well recounted, even at the end of the war, that if we just would have targeted military targets, we could have ended this war a year sooner, at least a year sooner. It's going to explode here in a minute. That's okay. We could have ended the war sooner. Well, why did the Brits and the Americans target the German people? It was to break their will. You've done this great evil to us, so we in turn will do this great evil to you. And that perpetuated the evil to hundreds of thousands of more deaths. Huh?
Eye for an eye.
Eye for an eye. If you were to go to the Brits and say, look at this evil you are participating in by choosing this particular war doctrine, would they have said, yes, you're right, we too are evil just like the Germans? No. They would have said, no, we're innocent. They bombed us first. And that's what perpetuates evil. So next time, becomes the challenge, someone engages in an action against you that hurts you. I'm not saying you did anything to deserve the action against you, right? The British people didn't deserve to have buzz bombs destroying their families. But you can ask yourself, in what way am I going to declare myself innocent when I retaliate? You can retaliate, but acknowledge that it's evil.
One of the audience has a question.
The problem with that strategy, too, is that the German leadership had already dehumanized the German people. So they weren't doing it for the people, they were value of their life. It wouldn't have been a factor.
Oh, radically dehumanized them. Right? Yeah.
Well, I have a quick question because I know I've read kind of testimonials of those that were American airplane pilots that were involved in the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and they at least it was at least impressionable to me that they acknowledged that what they did was evil, that they perpetuated that. Do you feel like that acknowledgement and grief and understanding can help lead to that rehumanizing?
It can. I don't know that it necessarily does. One of the surreal things I encountered in doing trauma work with refugees, very strange. So Rwanda, the massacres, the genocides there, right? The Hutus versus the Tutsis. It's a very strange phenomenon where some Tutsi men left a village to go hunt the Rwandans that were raiding around various villages, and while those men who were armed left, the Hutus came in shortly behind and started killing the older men, the women and children, etc. in the village. And they, of course, to spare themselves the ammunition, which was expensive, they used machetes, etc., to slaughter the women and children in the village. Well, the next morning, they leave the corpses around the village to rot, to be this very unpleasant surprise when the Hutus return. And the raiders camp outside the village. Well, the next morning they get up and they find wild dogs are ravaging and eating the corpses of the villagers that they just killed the day before. And they are so offended that dogs would eat people that they killed the dogs. Somebody got the irony. They were merely objects when the raiders were using the machete on them. But the next morning when the raiders wake up, the corpses were corpses of people. I wasn't doing therapy with the men who came back to find their women and children killed. I was doing therapy with the men wielding the machetes. What does it mean when you see the corpse of a woman that you had killed the night before with a machete, and now you see her as human, and you kill the dog in disgust and revulsion that a dog would eat in person, and then you're left with that feeling, I killed the person the dog is eating. What do you do with that kind of thing? In prison, when I would treat PTSD, yes, sometimes it was for the trauma these men had suffered. But most of the time, I treated PTSD for these men because of the trauma they inflicted on other people. They couldn't get the image of his brains splattering against the wall. I was a few seconds out. A few seconds out. Yeah. They had, yeah. So, the height of evil consists in perpetuating evil with the intention of suppressing my suffering or the suffering of another, and rendering others guilty in order to guarantee our own innocence and to guarantee that we will be made free of suffering. But you see, does it work that way? Well, sometimes, right? For example, let's say Chris and I have a disagreement, right? And it becomes vitriolic. She and I both carry switchblades. We pop them out. We're knife fighting. I managed to kill her because even though she's so much faster than me, I have much longer reach. That means it ends there, right? No, she's dead, right? She was the one. She was angry at me. We were both suffering.